Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a roster review and kind of an account review for my roster, which I've been playing for roughly 6 weeks now. I started on server 204 at the start of soft launch, which was December 27th. So I'm doing this kind of for a few reasons. Number one, I want to highlight what you can do as a completely free-to-play player in the first 6 weeks of your account to sort of uh, kickstart it. You can see what I've done, and it'll give you kind of a window into what you'll be able to do in the future. And then the other thing is, I really want to be able to document where my account is right now as a free to play player because the web store just opened up for US players today, and there is little bit of light spending that I want to do that I think will optimize my account going forward. I'm not a big spender. I'm not a whale by any stretch. I don't want to be a whale. I could probably spend a decent amount on some characters to unlock them, but that's not where I want to spend my money. I think a lot of you can relate to that. Now, I have no problems with people whaling. I think it's great for these game economies. Not a big fan of gambling, but you do you. I do plan on spending some money to make my roster to kind of augment my roster and augment how I approach spending anvils and gems and that sort of thing. So before we jump into the roster review, I do want to jump over to the Discord so that you can see the announcement for the web store. Let's do that. So again, this is sort of it's not a robust web store. The idea for this one is you'll be able to buy what's called a planet coin. And those planet coins, it's essentially the same thing as it's basically a cash conversion. You're converting whatever currency that you use in your country into a coin that everyone kind of it does the exact same thing for everyone everywhere. But you will be able to spend those planet coins on packs in the game. So there's like a little feature, a toggle switch, and I think there's in the Discord there should be a space where they talk about this. So there's this web store. So basically, they have a little bit of instructions on kind of how you can access the web store. When you click on the link, you basically have to put in your user ID for the server that you're playing on. So you make sure that you're logged into the character that where you want to be spending the money. Sometimes, like people like me, I have a character on every single server right now, 200 through 204, and I'll be making one on 205. But I want to make sure that my spend is going to server 204, which is the main server that I'm playing on. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing to mention here is you can see down here when you get logged back in or when you get into the game after you've made your purchase and you have your planet coins, in order to utilize them, you have to go down to the bottom of your roster and in the perks, or I guess like the web store or the pack store section of the game, and you'll have to toggle between cash and your planet coins. And I can show you what the game looks like when you haven't spent, because again, this is a completely free to play account. If we switch back over, so if you click this little shop icon in the top right of the screen, down here, once you have spent in the game or once you have spent on the web store and you have planet tokens, you will be able to hit a toggle switch here in the bottom right, and you can switch back and forth. So I will be spending later today, and maybe I'll make a video on exactly what I'm buying and what I value in the game. But right now, I do want to focus on the roster and do a roster review. So let's take a look. I am at War Room 27 on server 204, a little bit behind some of the spenders, and there's probably a few min-max players who are probably ahead of me as well. There's also some folks who spent on the landscape version of the game and they had planet tokens to start on the server, and that put them ahead of me, even though they're kind of free to play players on server 204. They're not really free to play because they spent in the previous version of the game and they got a little bit of a jump start. I did not get that. The jump start I got was the landscape players got some compensation for their progress in the game. even if they didn't spend. And I got about 25 or 26 anvils and maybe 500 to 1,000 gems. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not really a lot of compensation for what we did, and it really didn't get my account too far. It may have helped me in the bleed. I got a couple of extra draws over there, which was nice. And you can see that the first thing we'll talk about is my Superman, which is 3 blue stars. He's the best character on the account by far. And I would maybe you could attribute one of those blue stars, like one draw extra to my Superman. It's very difficult to get. I think that would be. It ends up being 4 draws total that I got on Superman as a free to play player, and that did actually kind of hamstring my account a bit in terms of chasing other draws, because I was very close to not getting Joker at 5 white stars because I spent so much time trying to pull Superman. Like, Joker came into the bleed and I ignored him for several days until I got my Superman as far as I could, because I knew I was on pity to get my 4th draw of Superman. So that's something that you need to watch out for as a non-spender or a light spender, is that you're just gonna miss bleed characters, or at least you're not gonna get the stars that you want on them. For example, we have Deathstroke in the bleed right now, as well as I think Scarecrow is ending today. I was only able to get 1 draw of Scarecrow, and I was very diligent about making sure that I got my Interstellar Visitor anvils. You get about 40, I would say, free Interstellar Visitor anvils that you can get each week. I say free in quotations because you have to grind pretty hard. It takes, I think, 3,000 gems in order to get that, but most players should be able to get those 3,000 gems. The issue is you have to be really careful. You basically can't buy anything from the store, the mystery store, or anything else with your gems. You can get away with buying something here and there, but you really want to make sure you're hitting that 3,000 gem mark. And we'll talk about how you can do that very briefly. Typically, I used to not be a fan of going after the Supreme Commander. I think that set me back a couple of weeks. I probably could have earned more gems, but I'm going after the Supreme Commander every week now. It seems inefficient because you're having to hoard resources for a few days so that you can spend them on one day, but it's really important to do that because of the gems and other resources that you're going to be getting from doing the Supreme Commander event. But looking back at my roster, there's and they've actually done a couple of things to address this, but most at the moment, most free-to-play players are kind of pigeonholed into choosing Justice League, and I like Justice League characters anyway. I'm not a big fan of all the comics and everything. Maybe I should read a few more of those, but I really loved watching the Justice League cartoons when I was a kid, and so I was perfectly fine with focusing on the Justice League characters. I've mentioned this in a previous video. I think Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, Mera, and Black Adam are the best 5 characters to start with on any roster, and that's what I did here. So you can see that I have heavily invested in my Green Arrow and Wonder Woman. They're part of my top 5, and I'm a big fan of Justice League Dark. I really want to invest in that team as Constantine and Zatanna become available in the bleed. So I have Wonder Woman selected here. She's also just a really good tank, and Green Arrow and Wonder Woman being kind of 2 of my top 5 characters makes a lot of sense, because not spending, and even when I do spend, not spending a lot will set you back if you're only investing in mythic characters where you can't get a lot of stars. So you can see here, I mean, I was only able to get 5 white stars on Joker, but he's a really solid champion, and I think he's worth building on any roster. And then Ivy, I focused on her with I used her as the pick. You get a free pick with an event that starts when you first start the game. So I used her for that, and I've been very fortunate to get a few extra draws of her from mother boxes. And Harley, you get 10 shards of Harley to start out with as well for your 7-day login, at least currently as of February 13th, 2025. That's still the case. I'm sure maybe they will change that. I think actually maybe with newer shards, you may be able to select who you want for that login too. I'm not sure. I know there are packs you can buy, but again, I've been very fortunate with my Harley. I think she is she's very close to 5 white stars, and then my Ivy is very close to 5 white stars as well. So I think that's really meaningful progress towards getting some of these characters unlocked and playable. So this is my luck with these characters is probably a little bit better than some have experienced, and some people don't go after Ivy out of that character selector. Some people might go after Lex or Batgirl or whatever, but I think those characters that you get for free at the beginning of the game, focusing on like whichever one you choose, you're probably going to have a decent chance of getting some stars on them as you go. So keep that in mind as well. For example, if I had have chosen Lex with that selector, I have 6 shards of him that I've gotten kind of just organically, and I would have had at least the first 2 skills unlocked for him, or the first 2 stars unlocked for him had I chosen him with a selector. And before we move on to some of the other characters that I want to highlight in my roster, let's take a look at my Superman. You can kind of get an idea for what I've been working on with him or what I've been able to accomplish. And his gear, I focus on putting the best gear that I can make at the time on him. So you can see I have a little bit of Legendary Plus gear on him here, and several pieces of gear that have his tag bonus, the Justice League tag bonus, which is really nice. And I'm also using Prometheum Claws. I only have them at 0 stars, but it's been quite helpful. It definitely ramps up his damage. You can get an idea for, I'm not going to show you this for every character, but at least for Superman, you can see what he has working for him. And then for his force, I'm dumping as much ACDC shards as I can, as many ACDC shards into him as I can, because he is kind of what the account is built around. Now, if you choose in server 205, and hopefully they'll implement this in some of the older servers, but there's about to be a new feature where you will have a second bleed in addition to the main running bleed, where you can choose, or you don't get to choose, but you have 4 mythics that you'll have a chance to earn. I believe it's Superman, Zatanna, Sinestro, and the Joker. So these are all 4 characters. At least 3 of them are currently S tier in our collaborative tier list, and then one of them is Zatanna is at least going to be an A or A plus tier, and she's probably going to end up being S tier as well, just depending on what we see in the meta over the coming weeks. But I think that's going to be really nice, because you'll have the ability to kind of choose one of those characters to build your roster around, because I think they're all characters that you're going to want to do that for. At least with Sinestro, Joker, and Superman. Like if you choose one of those that you want to build, you're going to put most of your resources into that character. So keep that in mind. But just giving you an idea for how I approach Force. We can go through my top 5, and you can see what I've done here. So Joker, I'm still working on trying to get a little bit more for him. I've focused on some of these key, like the effect accuracy boost, the attack boost, and the energy gain bonus. Energy gain is very important, trying to cycle his ultimate. You can see that I've dumped a decent amount of points into my Green Arrow, and I'm specifically focusing on items that make his crit higher. And then Ivy, I've put a little bit into her. I've also kind of, decided to try to focus on what I'm building with her to make sure that she's giving a little bit more healing bonus. So I'll focus on attack percent and healing items for her. She's not as good of a healer as Mera in a lot of cases, but the fact that she's kind of a hybrid damage dealer as well makes her very appealing for certain modes like combat cycle. And then Wonder Woman, I've got a little bit of work to do on her, but you can see I've started focusing on some of the second level force talents for her. And I think a few others that I had focused some force in at various points, and I'll continue to do so. Harley, I have put some force into her, primarily just the first set. You can see I don't have that last skill unlocked for her, which is unfortunate, but definitely putting some points into hers. I'll probably end up doing this crit resistance as well at some point. I believe Dr. Fate, I invested a lot of force into him initially and then backed off of that because I really want to get him to 5 white stars so that he feels a little bit better to use at higher levels. He's definitely been very useful to my roster as a free to play player to get through some training simulator battles and some campaign battles where you just need that extra bit of protection. Obviously, he doesn't heal and his damage is awful, but the strategy around using Dr. Fate is you're trying to protect the characters that are doing damage for you. And since Superman is a physical damage character who is kind of in the fray, you need to be able to put some protection on him so that he doesn't get focused down. And Dr. Fate can do that. So that's why I built him up as much as I did. Batman is a character that I didn't invest in at all to start out with. He was a character that's kind of hard to get. I think I've gotten him from Motherbots a couple of times, which is how I got him up to 3 white stars. But I, didn't believe in investing in him at all. He was a pretty horrible character, but they buffed him a little bit, and so I've started slowly investing some resources into him. And maybe I will look at least purchasing a pack of Batman just so that I can get him up to 5 white stars. Probably won't take him any higher than that. Definitely going to be focused on that sort of thing. You can see here that I only got a 0-star Scarecrow, which is quite unfortunate unless I get crazy lucky in the next 10 hours before he goes away for me. I think the next character that is worth mentioning is, again, Black Adam, where I talked about I'm a big fan of all of those 4 characters, Black Adam, Mera, Wonder Woman, and Green Arrow, for focus building your account when you start out. And so I did focus on Black Adam a lot to start out with. I got him up to one of 5 on all of his force, and then started doing some of the second level before I unlocked better characters to use. Especially once I had Joker built up, kind of quit investing in Black Adam, and also started investing a lot more in Green Arrow because I felt like the single target damage mattered more. But definitely a character that's worth building. And if you're going after a Legion of Doom comp, so if you really want Sinestro, Black Adam offers a lot of utility as sort of your 4th or 5th character. He's a good backline damage dealer for the Legion of Doom team for someone who's very early on in their account or for free-to-play players. And then Mera, I will mention. I think she's the best healer in the game from the standpoint that she's easily accessible. Green Lantern is definitely, even with they didn't nerf him, but with the recent patch, they fixed an issue where he was getting crazy energy gains. But even with that, he's still the best character in the game from a healing perspective. But you have to spend a lot of money to unlock him. He is definitely a pay-to-win only character. So that means that Mera is really your best choice for a pure healer. Raven is up there, and especially once we have a full Justice League Dark team with Zatanna and then hopefully Constantine coming soon, Mera is going to be a much better, Raven's going to be a much better character. But until then, Mera's great. Obviously I mentioned Ivy already, and I kind of switched them out depending on what I need for my account. I've invested a little bit into her force tree. I probably should spend a little bit more on the healing up items, and what I'll also look for, I haven't checked these, pure attack percentage is a really good option for her because her healing is based on her attack, which is kind of weird, but that will definitely boost Mera up a little bit for you. You can see what I've done with her here. That's the most, or that's the gist of what I've done with Force. There are a few characters where I've taken one or two items up on their Force. Maybe Cyborg. Yeah, I did a couple of items with Cyborg when I first unlocked him before I even had that 1 star unlocked because I was doing some testing and I think Cyborg is great at 0 stars. So definitely another thing to watch out for on your account. But for the most part, you can see I've kind of had to leave these characters alone. Um, I've got a couple of them where I can upgrade their stars, but I'm waiting for Supreme Commander for the part of that event where I can upgrade the characters and get some points for it. So, they're really just dust collectors. I would say backing out of the character screen and just going to the main roster, the one thing that you want to watch out for is making sure that your room status is, you want to get those 30%. So even if a character is just being a paperweight because you're not investing in them, you can still put them to use in your rooms, and that's very important. I actually have a joint guide that I did with Tyvoka, and you can see that on the main Discord or on my Discord channel or server. But definitely take a look at that, and make sure that you're putting these mythic champions to use. Now, I mentioned Supreme Commander. I won't go into this much, but I'll make a video specifically for it. But I'm definitely trying to maximize my roster by doing things whenever Supreme Commander tells me to. So um, today's alloy and chips. So I tried to save all of my alloy and chips. I've already spent them, or at least most of them that I could on that today. But you definitely want to get as many points as you can. Today's a difficult day with the alloy and chips because unless you are ready to do an upgrade with your research tree, you're probably not going to have a lot of these around to spend. But I think with Mother Box activation, you can get pretty far. I got to 40,000 points this week. With Intel Gathering, you can get pretty far as well. What I did was for Intel Gathering, I spent 40 anvils, and that got me a lot of the 40,000 here. Another thing I will mention is, without spending, I don't have that second construction queue. The first thing that I will buy for this account is the second construction queue because it's very difficult to upgrade your base, which is one of the most important parts of progression for your account without having that second construction queue so that you can choose two things at once. I've had to painstakingly update all the living quarters or kind of power generation places to 10, which is the maximum you can get. I've also tried to focus a little bit on my power plants. You can see that I've gotten them, to a decent spot. At least my power production is at 0 efficiency, which is preventing the game from giving me negative production in my facilities. It kind of counteracts your base appointments. So definitely something that I've tried to watch out for. And if I was able to spend just $2 USD, I would have been able to handle a lot of this kind of on the side without feeling like I was hamstringing my account. So I wish that I had that. Again, War Room 27, I'm pretty happy with that progress. I've tried to keep at least one of all the productive buildings one level behind or at the same level as my my war room upgrades. But now I am also trying to focus on getting access to higher level equipment, so I'm having to focus on that. Once I have the second construction queue, I will be able to focus on building up my armory while also continuing to build up one of each of the productive buildings to the same level as my war room. And then I obviously will continue, like in between upgrading the armory, I'll focus on drones and some of the other productive buildings. But that's kind of where I'm at with roster progress on those things. I am pretty caught up. I need to do all of my crisis response, but I'm pretty caught up with the campaign. I do have, I think, a couple more fights that I have to do. I'm on the Raven nodes right now, and I've got a couple of the sort of boss fights that I need to take care of, but they are super high level. Like this one's a million power, and the Death Stroke is a million as well. So I'm not quite ready to be able to do those. I've got to progress my roster a little bit to do that. And then the last thing we'll take a look at is sort of my progress on the SON. Meta Brawl, if I try to climb, I should be able to get into the top 100 or top 50 pretty easily, and that's about as far as I can go. Anti-Crime Network, I have mostly focused on my Genesis gathering, the biostems. I don't really care about anything else. So I haven't even attempted some of the newer levels on the Alloy or XP. I probably should see if I can get those taken up a little bit, but they're really irrelevant. You should not be using those if you're free to play, because I think the better value is getting your characters levels up to where your war room is. But then you can focus on your maybe your chips, kind of behind that, and some of these other things. But if you spend, you're going to get a lot more of these Intel Point tokens, and you can do that through one of the passes. I can show you my progress there as well in a second. But when you do that, you're going to have less of a crunch for your biostems, and maybe you might be willing to do a little bit more focus on your alloys. But for me, I just ignore those, and every time I have the ability to do it, I come in here and do the Genesis gathering. Training sim, I'm a little bit behind on some of the Realm of Fate sims. I probably need to go back in and see if I can get further on these. But you can see I've made some progress. I don't have any of the Legion of Doom really, other than that 0-star Scarecrow. So it's kind of hard to make any progress there. But everything else, I probably push a little bit further in these. But I am at 355 on Training Sim. Again, I just upgraded my Superman to level 360, so maybe I can push a little bit further in here as well. Forget what my ranking is. 118 right now on server 204. I've gotten as close as 40 or 50 if I really push and focus on it. So I'm curious where I can get with that. Combat cycle, I've typically been able to stay within the top 100. My rank for Devastator is 89. I was 129 yesterday. I think that was Merciless. And then the day before that, I was ranked 71. So, with a free-to-play account with a little bit of min-maxing and logging in every day, you should be able to stay top 100 in Combat Cycle, which is going to continue to generate a few rewards for you. They really nerfed a lot of the rewards for Combat Cycle, but I feel pretty happy with my progress and my ability to stay in the top 100, which means that, I'm able to be in one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 guilds or leagues in the game, or at least in the server. So, pretty good progress for a free-to-play account, I think. And then, Darkest Timeline, I guess we can talk about this one, but you don't need to be free to play or you don't need to spend to do well in Darkest Timeline. It's a really good resource for free to play players, though, because you can earn these mythic champion shards, and it's a selector, so you get to choose who you want to use it on. And I've been able to really, augment my roster by using these champion shards. I was able to unlock a few extra characters, and then I'm trying to focus on Ivy and Lex Luthor for the mythics that I'm going to be adding shards to. So, well, I think that covers most of the basics for where my roster is. I hope that gives you some good insight into where I'm at, and maybe lends a little bit of credence to some of the work that we've been doing with the tier list and other work that I've been doing in the community. I really want to help free-to-play and light spenders maximize their rosters and play the game at a higher level. So I'm going to continue to try to work with Wells and learn from them, try to figure out where accounts need to be in the future. But then I'm going to use that data to sort of show you how you can build your roster from scratch as a free-to-play player. I think a lot of times whales they gloss over how difficult it is to get to from War Room 1 to War Room 30, for example, because they just zoom past all the content into the end game. And I've done it multiple times now. I'm kind of an altaholic. I like to make alt accounts on the different servers and kind of learn as much as I can about different team comps and that sort of thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's been useful to kind of see where I'm at. I really just want this to kind of be out there in the ether so that people can see my journey as a free-to-play player in the first 6 weeks of the game. Be sure to comment, let me know how you're doing with your roster progress, whether you're excited about some of the changes coming to the game. And I'm looking forward to how the game progresses over the next few months, and I'll give you another update soon.